place we're going to start with the Judiciar is with his black armour. And the colour we're going to be using for this is Leviadon Blue. First and foremost. And what this does is this establishes our first colour and our first highlight for us before we layer over it with black Templar. Just want to get a nice even coat of this all over, making sure that we've covered up all those edges. And next up, once that Leviadon Blue is dry, we're going to use some black Templar. And what we want to do here is we want to just apply this to the flats of the surfaces while still leaving that edge. So we just want to add this black Templar like this. All over the armor panel. Just being careful. Like that. We want to do this over all of these black panels. Again, just being really careful every time we get close to an edge. And next up, with that black Templar applied, we're going to take some thinned down Russ Grey. We're going to apply a highlight to all of those black edges. You don't have to do the whole edge. This way that you kind of leave some of that Leviadon Blue still showing, just to create kind of a bit of variation in amongst all of the armor panels. And next up, with all that Russ Grey applied, we're just going to take a small amount of Fenrisian Grey, and we just want to apply this to the corners and the rivets of these armor panels. Like this. And so with all that black armor now complete, we can move on and start painting some of the other details. The face we're going to focus on next is on the white big cloak, because this is pretty much his most dominating feature. Now the first colour we're going to use is we're going to use some Flesh Tearers Red, and this is for the inside of the cloak. So you just want to make sure that you get all of these inside details. Now there's the undersleeve here, which also kind of goes around like this, and you've got round here as well. The brush a quick wash. You've also got the interior of the cape round here on the inside, and you've also got the inside round here as well. So you just want to go around picking out all these details with the Flesh Tearers Red. And next up, with that Flesh Tearer's Red applied, we're now going to focus on the outside of the cloak. We're going to leave the gloves for now, because they're going to be slightly different colours. But we're going to focus just on this kind of outside part of the places that we've painted. Now, the first colour that we're going to be using is Skeleton Horde. And what we want to do is we want to take a fair whack of this on our brush. And we basically want to just get a good even coating of this all over. So we want to start up by a recess and just pull this Skeleton Horde all the way down, like this. I want to get this all over that cloak. And once that Skeleton Horde is dry, we're going to take some Wyldwood. We're going to do basically the same thing again with the Wyldwood over the outside of the cloak. And we just want to use these big, broad brush strokes. Like this. All over. And once all that Wyldwood is dry, you should have this really lovely, just gorgeous looking brown. So what we're going to do is going to add some highlights to it. And the colour we're going to be using for this is a smaller brush, first and foremost. That's quite a large brush. So the colour we're going to be using for this is Karak Stone. Now this might look a little bit stark when you first start putting them on. We've actually got a little bit too much paint. But that's okay, because we're going to do something really clever. So stick with it. And we're going to apply this Karak Stone to all the sharp edges. Like this. And next up, with that Karak Stone applied, we're going to, just before we finish off the brown cloak, we're going to coat in the red cloth. And these are his gloves and his face mask here. And the colour we're going to be using for this is Flesh Tearer's Red. So we just want to take our Flesh Tearer's Red and get this all over these details. Just being careful around where we've already painted. And once all that Flesh Tearer's Red is dry, we're going to create a roughly 8 parts contrast medium, 1 part Cygor Brown mix. This will give us quite a thin, reddy brown shade. And what we want to do is we want to paint this all over the brown cloak, just to bring down those highlights a bit. We want to paint it over the inside red, and we want to paint it all over the gloves and his face mask. Like this. And once all that dry, we want to use a small amount of Mephiston Red just to apply a little bit of a highlight to those red details. And with that, the red and the cloak are now finished, and I think they look amazing. Right. I would say so because I painted them myself. Anyway, next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the leather details. Now I know we've already worked on a lot of the leather details, but these ones are slightly different. So we're going to be working on the belt the pouch, holster I should say, and the pouch is on his back. And the colour we're going to be using for this is Cygor Brown. Now we're just going to paint this Cygor Brown straight out the pot, all over these details. And once those pouches are dry, we want to use a small amount of Mournfang Brown to give them a highlight. And then you want to do this on the pouches and the holster. And next up, we're going to paint in the chapter shoulder pad. And this can be any colour that you want it to be, depending on what chapter you're painting. But as we're doing the Mighty Blood Angels, I'm going to be using Blood Angels Red for this. So what I want to do is I just want to make contact with a fair whack of this on my brush, and then just start painting this Blood Angels Red all over the inside of the shoulder pad. And with that done, we can now start painting in the gold details. And the colour we're going to be using for this is Retributor Armour. And this is going to be for all of the trim. So various of the hanging ornaments that he's got scattered around his front. The hilt of the sword. And any of these little emblems that you can see all around him. And the hourglass outline bit. Just want to go around with this old Retributor Armour, picking out all of these areas. And once that Retributor Armour is applied, we're going to take some thinned down Iron Warriors and apply this to all the silver details. So this includes areas like the blade, and the vents on his backpack and the various chains hanging off him, and any other details you want to be silver. And next up, with all that silver applied, we're now going to finish off the rest of the base coats before applying some shading. And the first colour we're going to use is Skeleton Horde, and this is just for those purity seals. And there's one there on his backpack. And there's the other one on his arm. That comes off the arm and also is tied around his bicep. And next up we're going to use some Magos Purple, and this is for the wax seals on those purity seals. And next up we're going to use some Volupus Pink, and this is for the soft grip on the sword. And with that done, we want to use some Wyldwood, not very much, just a little bit, and we want to use this on the recesses between the ribbed bones on his chest. And once that Wyldwood shading is done on the bones, what we want to do is we're going to take some Apothecary White, and we want to use this all over the skull, the rib bones and this hourglass. So we take the Apothecary White and we do it all over like this. And next up, once that Apothecary White is dry, we want to take some Gryph Charger Grey. Not very much. And we want to basically draw in the sand in here. Now, we want to keep most of this Gryph Charger Grey towards the bottom. Like this. And same again on the other side. And then around from the middle, we want to go up. Like that. And similarly again on the other side to give ourselves the impression of the sand draining away from the top to the bottom. What we can do is just strengthen up like that. And just use a little bit more further down the bottom. Like this. And next up we want to use a small amount of Basilicanum Grey. And this is just for the lower parts. Of this hourglass. You don't want to use very much Basilicanum Grey here. Similarly, towards the middle, we want to add a little bit of it there and there. And with that done, we now want to do some shading on all those metallics, and the colour we're going to be using is Basilicanum Grey. And we want to use this all over all of the gold and all of the silver. So you just want to apply this very carefully, not too much so that we don't overload all of those metallic details. Like this. And next up, with all those shades applied, it's now time to do some highlights. And the colour we're going to start with is Corax White. And this is going to be for all of the white details. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of this Corax White on our brush. And then just up here on the skull, we just want to hit the raised areas. Like this. And similarly on the bones, we want to draw a line going down the middle. Like that. And on the hourglass, what we want to do is we want to just add a small amount of this Corax White around where the kind of darker shades start to meet the lighter shades, like this. And then next up, just to finish off that glass, we're going to create a roughly 10 parts contrast medium to 1 part Akhelian Green mix. So get this really, really, really thin Akhelian Green. And we just want to paint this all over the hourglass. like this. And next up we want to use some thinned down Liberator Gold to highlight all of those gold details. And next up, with all of that gold highlighted, we're now going to highlight all the steel using some Iron Hand Steel, I should say. Highlight all the silver using some Iron Hand Steel. This includes places like the chain, his blade, basically anywhere that you've put silver. And with that done, the last thing we're going to do is take a bit of Blood Angels Red. I'm going to use this to coat over his eyes. Like that. And just to finish off those eyes, we use a small dot of Fire Dragon Bright in the top right corner of the lenses and top left of the other one. Like that, just to give it a bit of shine. And with that, all that remains to do now is to do his base. And if you'd like to see how I'm going to do the base, you can check out the How to Do Nuclear Wasteland Bases tutorial available here on YouTube. Or you can just base him in the same colour scheme as the rest of your army. And there we have it, our Judiciar is all finished, ready to lop some heads off with that enormous executioner's blade of his. What's really cool is that these actually existed in history. Go and look it up. I'm not lying to you. It's a really, really awesome little bit of a reference on the part of GW and the design team. It's brilliant. It just really captures that executioner, chaplain in training vibe. I absolutely love it, and I hope you do too. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to support me further, like these legends on the screen, you can do so. Head to patreon.com/warhipster or head to ko-fi.com/warhipster. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Do all of that good stuff. And if you want to be kept up to date, make sure to click the bell icon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.